got him. Hey, Mr. Hotshot, I'm Mr. Real Deal. I want you to know, before we got to win, let us know. Man, if you guys follow along with Headhunters, you know we spend all year, all fall, all around the country smashing whitetails. But at the end of the day, can we do that same thing on one piece of property right here at home? This whole thing isn't about being able to run an arrow through a deer standing broadside at 20 yards. This is about, can we grow those deer? Can we make it the kind of property that we've always dreamed about in other parts of the country? Can we do that right here?
I just shot the best buck I've ever shot in Missouri.
We knew going into this thing that being able to develop the best whitetail property that's ever been developed in our part of the country wasn't going to be an easy task. This is going to be the full meal deal, man. We were going into a raw piece of property. It was a complete timber tract. It had no food, it had no water, it had no age structure on the deer, it had no bedding cover. We were going to have our work cut out, man, but I tell you, going into this thing, it was our dream to one day have a property like this and have that blank canvas, and we're about to get started on it. When we first got the Raven, we put up 40 or 50 bog cameras throughout the place. We wanted to know and be able to see every inch of that place and what was on it and try to learn it as fast and quick as we could. Genetics is one of the first things that we look at whenever we start looking and studying a new piece of property. You got to look and see what that baseline is to see what that genetic potential is on that particular piece of property. And unfortunately on the Raven, it was subpar. We didn't have the age structure of bucks. We didn't have the number of mature bucks that we needed. Whenever you have that, you know, a lot of times it takes 2 to 3 years to get that back in balance where it needs to be. And really the only thing that you can do is make sure that you're laying off those younger deer and trying to focus in on those 5 and 6 year old deer, especially the ones that's got the lower genetic potential. Key in on them, get those out of there. A lot of times they're the inferior genetic deer. They're just holding a place for that younger, better genetic deer that may be there, but he's getting bumped off by these kind of deer every year. So you take one of those subpar deer out and you're creating a space for that better, younger genetic deer to stick around on your place. It's super discouraging whenever you get on a new place, you get on a new property, you run the trail camera inventory, and you know the kind of deer that you're looking for and that you're wanting and you're hoping for to be there isn't there. So the only thing that you can do is, one, either just sell it and get rid of it and just cash in the hunk of junk, or you get to work. Dustin's mapping it out. We come in here a couple months ago and we dropped a waypoint on Onyx where we wanted to start the plot, but we didn't map it out. So he's gonna map it out. He's gonna go grab the dozer. I think it's gonna be a sweet little spot right here. The very first thing that we like to do on a new piece of ground is to be able to look at, jump on Onyx, study the map, study the topos on there, and be able to kind of see and develop a plan for that particular place as far as where you're going to implement these steps of the program at. Just getting in here to check the progress on these boys. I tell you what, they are flat doing some work. This is a new spot that we're setting up on a completely new property, and what this was is it was 100% big timber. The whole property is big timber. So we come in here, looked at the topo, picked out a couple spots that we're gonna blow out some new food plots. It's gonna be a good little spot, I think, on the old Raven. I'm excited about it. There's so many things to look at and think about whenever you're looking at basically a blank slate as far as putting in new food plots, putting them on a place that's never had any food plots in there. The first thing that we wanted to do was go to the outside edges with our food. Use the center part of the farm to thicken up as much as we could, hold as many of our deer in the core part of our farm, put our food on the outside edges, and be able to pull not only our deer, but be able to pull the neighbor's deer too. We're looking for south-facing slopes. We're looking for east-facing slopes, as high as we can get them on these ridge tops to where our wind is gonna be true up there whenever we're hunting that food plot. And we're backing up, you know, 100 to 200 yards where those deer are gonna be bedding, and that's where we're putting our food. We wanna keep our food close to those bedding areas to where those deer are gonna get up in the evenings. They're gonna hit the food plots in the daylight, but still yet be bedded far enough to where you can access in and out of these plots without being seen and detected. I'm stoked to see how this new fall annual blend turns out. As you can see, it's got several different things in it. You can see right there the peas. It's got those right there. That's a radish. It's got several different, it's got wheat, rape, so it's got a little bit of everything in it, almost to be from an early season to a late season blend in itself. So it's definitely one that we're pumped to get in the ground and try out and see how it does. We're gonna put browse cages on all these and kind of be able to tell and report back to Big Time on where they're preferring, when they're preferring, and what they're preferring in these plots and how they're utilizing them. So it's gonna be cool to have those out and be able to really tell, you know, what our carrying capacity is on this particular piece of ground and how they're utilizing every food plot. If I had to pick one thing or one step to the 8-step process, it would definitely be food. I mean, you got to have the groceries or you're not gonna have the deer. That's bottom line. You know, the beauty about, you know, our Big Time blends is literally they have about everything to cover from start to finish, you know, and that's our biggest thing is on the Raven. We want groceries out there for those deer 365 days a year. So from planting our foundation clover and having that kicking in, you know, early spring all the way through summer and then even our early part of bow season to planting our long range that's going to be good from mid-October to mid-November, and then even into our last stand blends, which is a late season brassica. We have a good combination and a good mixture of that all the way across the farm because we don't just want early season stuff, mid-season stuff, or late season stuff. We want a good combination of every one of those blends all the way across the farm. A lot of guys go out and hang a tree stand, and whether they're hunting public or private or their buddy's farm, whatever it might be, they go out there, they find a deer track, they find a deer trail, they hang a stand on it, and a deer magically appears. But at the end of the day, why is that deer there? What is he doing? What causes him to be in front of that deer stand? And more times than not, it's either food, water, or bedding. One of the three. This is the buck plot. I mean, once again, to break it down as simple as we can, we're gonna have great food here. We got bedding to the west and to the north of us right here. We've got a blind platform with the wind blowing over our windrow coming right to it. So our access is gonna be great. The deer can't access it from this side, from the downwind side. We got a pond right here, so we got water. We got our Big Time borderline in with a gap in it. A deer will die right there this year. It's not rocket science. Food, water, cover. That's it. So one of the main things that we focused on the Raven was water. It's simple math. If you can't grow, you can't live, you can't survive without water. So whenever we looked at the Raven, it had no running water, it had no ponds on it, so we knew instantly if deer are gonna live here, if they're gonna stay here, they gotta have water to drink. So we spread game ponds out, water holes across the entire property. So now we've got water 16 or 18 places on the Raven. And we put these water holes to not only have them in bow range, but also pinch a funnel for these deer to come by the tree in bow range, plus have a natural attractant right there with the water. They were very well thought out for sure. I remember the first time driving into the Raven and looking at the timber thinking, man, this is awesome looking timber. I could see 150, 200 yards down through there. And then really when I got to thinking about it and thinking about it from a deer habitat standpoint, I realized it was about the worst kind of timber that you could possibly have, man, because there was virtually no bedding. We had to pick the hottest day of the entire year so far to finish our last hinge cut, but this is the one probably that we were most excited about on the whole place. This is the smallest chunk out of any of it, and this is where we had the biggest deer last year living. So we're doing everything that we possibly can to make this small chunk right here exactly what he wants to stay here.
So while Randy's coming through here and cutting them, I'm pulling them with this forestry hook, and I'm able to pull them where I want or push them exactly where I want. And he's just cutting them 2/3 of the way through, and that allows the tree to continue to grow, put on foliage, and create bedding.
When I see a lot of people come in and make these bedding areas, they try to make it as thick as they possibly can in one tight spot. And deer, in general, you'll be able to bed a lot more deer, house a lot more deer if you spread these little pockets of cover out. They don't require a ton of cover to bed, and they don't like to be sandwiched right on top of each other. So we're taking a 4 acre or so spot right here, and we're really skipping around and hitting just little pods and making different little bedding areas, you know, kind of almost micro bedding areas inside this large bedding area. And what that does is, like I said, it'll make you house a lot more deer in a smaller area than going in and just cramming stuff on top of each other in a small spot. If you're not taking advantage of this system and putting in those micro bedding areas, what's gonna happen is your neighbor's gonna start shooting all your better genetic younger deer. That's what's gonna happen, because they're gonna get bumped off to the neighbors. When everybody is wondering, what happened to my good 3-year-old that was here? Well, he's on your neighbors, and guess what? He's probably on his wall. So when we built this plot 2 years ago, we put this windrow in here strategically on purpose and kind of lined this whole back of this food plot. That way nothing could enter the food plot on the downwind side. The problem is we didn't leave a spot to enter and exit ourselves without having to get into the food plot. So like I said, we're gonna put a trail in behind it to where we can come in and out of it and use it for concealment. I can think about every other step that we do in our program, and none of them make any sense or work without good access. I mean, that's the thing about it. You can have the best food plots, you can have the most deer, you can have the most bedding, you can have the most water, but if you don't have good access, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. We're actually using this windrow just like we would borderline, so not only is it keeping the deer from entering the food plot from this east side, but also now we're going to use it for concealment, getting in and out of this blind. So we're using it for a couple different purposes to hopefully make the access better and then keep our deer coming in from where the side that we want them to enter the food plot. We're saying borderline, you hear us say borderline all the time, and borderline is a concealment blend from big tine. This stuff gets 8-10 foot tall. It's basically a wall or a screen you're putting up between yourself and your access to the food plot, to where the deer aren't seeing you come in and out. I mean, in layman terms, in redneck terms, they ain't seeing you come in or out. That's what it is all about.
Drake man, Birdman.
I look at the Raven from where we started. You know, the age structure was way off. We had a lot of young bucks. We didn't have hardly anything that was super big. And to be able to just in 2 years to see the progression of where we are now, age structure wise, mature deer wise, it gives me high hopes for the kind of deer that we're going to be able to raise in the next 2 or 3 years down the road.
I cannot thank my man, Randy Birdsong, enough. You talk about being unselfish. He works all year long out on these farms and is kind enough to invite us all out. He's been helping everybody all week long. Your guys' work doesn't go unappreciated, and I can't thank you guys enough. What an absolute tank of a deer. I mean, a tank of a deer.
If we're breaking it down in layman's terms, I feel like we took a turd and we polished it, because I feel like if we could do this and implement this program in this part of the country on a property like the Raven, I can promise you that it can be done anywhere in the country.